Who is the greatest bowler of all time? It's a discussion that comes up in all sports, and the main issue with this discussion is that you need to compare players from different eras. The question arises, would players from different eras be able to compete against each other? Would a player from the 60s, for example, dominate in the same way in the modern game? While we may never have the answer to these type of questions, we're still going to do our best to figure out who the bowling GOAT is. So here is how this video is going to work. I'm going to discuss each player that is in the discussion for the greatest of all time and look at the arguments for and against. Then at the end, I'll weigh all of this up and give you my selection. Of course, everyone will have their own opinions on this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know your pick in the comment section below. So let's start off by breaking this down, and we have to start with the man with the most titles, and that's Walter Ray Williams Jr. Clearly, winning the most PBA titles of all time makes you a very strong contender for the best bowler ever. With 47 titles, including 8 majors, Walter Ray is clearly one of the best to ever play the game. His longevity was incredible, as he was still a dominant force on the tour at 50 years of age when he won the 2010 USBC Masters and was also named the Player of the Year for that season, which made him the oldest ever recipient of the award. Throughout the 2000s, he was just absolutely phenomenal given his age. In the 07-08 season at age 48, he established the second highest average in PBA history for a single season, with an average of just over 228. His list of achievements is simply remarkable, but perhaps the most impressive is his record of winning at least one PBA title per season in 17 consecutive seasons, 2 more than Earl Anthony. What made him so dominant was his accuracy and in particular spare shooting. I think he is one of, if not the best spare shooter we have ever seen. To top it all off, he is the only bowler to have converted the Big Four on TV. Clearly he has a lot going for him in the GOAT debate, but there's another player who many feel is the ultimate GOAT that will never be topped, which brings us on to Earl Anthony. Now, what can I say about Earl Anthony? He just did things that weren't human. Everything Walter did, Anthony basically did it first. He earned 43 titles and 6 Player of the Year awards. He was the first player to reach 100,000 in winnings and then 1 million in earnings. He earned 10 major titles, which was a record for many, many years. Held the PBA record of 15 televised final appearances in one season, which he did twice in 75 and 81. And what's more, won all of his 43 titles in a span of just 14 years. And I think that is what gives him the edge in this debate for many, and even Walter Ray has admitted that himself, because Anthony did all of this in such a short span of time. Walter's span lasted 24 years. Earl was also in a very different era, and clearly his accuracy was superior to even Walter's. Yes, Walter did dominate in multiple eras, from the use of urethane to the introduction of reactive resin, and then to the late 2000s when the power players really started to emerge. But Earl was just so damn good in his era, so incredibly accurate, that you really wonder what he could have achieved in the reactive era as an example. I don't need to go on to make a case for Earl Anthony because his achievements just speak for themselves. Right now it's a very close call between Earl and Walter, but let's go on and see if there's any other bowlers who can challenge them. Now we move on to Norm Duke, and his 40 titles puts him on 3rd on the all-time title list, and apart from the 3 players we've now looked at, including Norm, no other bowler has 40 titles or more. Just like Walter Ray, Norm had such incredible longevity and actually ended his career winning back-to-back titles in 2019 at 54 years of age. Then in 2022, he was the 1 seed at the USBC Masters, although he did not manage to win that event. But it shows how timeless his game was, and the fact that he was still competitive into his mid-50s is pretty incredible. When we look at his major record, it is less than Earl and Walter's. Duke has won 7 majors, but he did become the first player to ever win 3 majors in a row. That was during the 07-08 and 08-09 seasons. Norm was very good during the 90s, but in the 2000s, he pretty much took things to a new level, winning 23 titles from the year 2000 and onwards. Also, we can't forget another record that he set when he won his first title at the age of 18 years and 345 days, which is still the record for the youngest person ever to win a PBA title. I recently did a video about Norm, and there was a comment there that said he always felt like the underdog on telecasts, and I do agree with that a lot. I think part of what makes him hard to put above Walter and Earl is that he just feels that tiny little bit step behind those two. I think Norm makes a great case, but perhaps he's just a few titles short to really challenge for the title of the bowling GOAT. Next up is Pete Weber, who really brought bowling back to life in the early 2000s. For some people, I think his antics on the lanes took away the fact that he was one of the best ever. His major record gives him a big case here because he managed to tie Earl Anthony's major record of 10. One thing that sets Weber apart is his 5 US Open titles, something that I highly doubt will ever be matched. It would have been easy for Pete to get lost in the shadow of his father's legacy, but he managed to do everything that Dick did and more. He surpassed him and made a legacy of his own. But if we now try and make a case for him as the GOAT, there's a couple of problems, but the main one that I can think of is that his record against Walter Ray Williams Jr. on TV is not a good one. To be honest, Walter just used to beat him on TV on a pretty regular basis, and although Weber has more majors, Walter has 10 more titles, which is a pretty significant difference. Pete is one of the best to ever do it, but to me, he just falls short of the top 2, and it's between him and Norm for 3rd place in my opinion. Next up, we have Mark Roth, somebody who dominated the tour in his prime. He won 34 titles, but in the late 70s, he was just unstoppable, winning 22 titles from 75 to 79. His best year was easily in 1978, when he won 8 titles in a single season, a record that still stands. Roth won the Player of the Year award in 3 consecutive seasons, 77 through to 79, and won the honour again in 1984. And of course, he became the first player to spare the 710 on TV. But now, if we compare him to the other greats of the game, there is one area where he does fall a little bit short, and that is major titles. He won just 2 major titles, and both of these came very late in his career, and both in 1984. They were the US Open and the Players' Championship. After this, he would just win 3 more titles, but to me, he just doesn't quite have enough majors to put him above Walter, Earl, Norm or Pete. Even so, he's still a legend of the game, and one of the best bowlers we have ever seen. Let's now look at some of the players from the modern era. While their careers are not yet over, they are important to discuss because they already make strong cases in the GOAT debate. First up, Jason Belmonte. He is undoubtedly the greatest two-hander of all time and revolutionised the game in ways nobody really expected. He currently has 15 majors, 5 more than Earl and Pete. He has 32 titles in total, and at 41 years of age, still has time to add some more titles to his collection. The problem is, during the last 2 years, we have not seen the Belmonte we know on TV. He's made plenty of shows, but his performances on TV have been very un-Belmo-like. His last singles win came in March 2023 when he won the Tournament of Champions for the 4th time in his career. But since then, he's just looked a little bit out of sorts on TV. Now, this could just be a bit of a slump, and all the greats have had them. But when you look at players like Walter, Norm, Pete, etc., they all have something in common, and that was longevity. They almost seem to hit a second peak in their mid to late 40s and were able to finish their career strongly. And I think this will be key for Belmonte. Even with his 15 majors, I personally think he needs to at least surpass Pete's title record of 37 to really challenge Earl and Walter in the debate. Another player who is already edging his way into the debate is EJ Tackett. Now, he's still got some ways to go, but the way he's going, he's got a chance to get close to Earl or even Walter's record. He's got 27 titles, just 5 short of Belmonte already, despite being almost 9 years younger, and he has 7 majors. If he can add another 10 titles, then suddenly he has a very strong argument. He's just dominated the game in the last 2 or 3 years, and his level of consistency is really like nothing we have seen. As long as he stays healthy and continues to pick up titles each season, it won't be long before he is on par with the top 2. Now, finally, I just want to talk about a few honourable mentions. These are all players who were up there with the best of the game, but just falls short of the GOAT debate for various reasons. First, we have Parker Bone III, a true legend of the game who did win 35 titles, but with just 3 majors, this does set him apart from the other greats. Then we have Dick Webber, essentially bowling's first star, and while he is a legend of the game who paved the way, too many other greats have surpassed him in titles and majors. Then you have other players like Mike Albee, Don Johnson, Brian Voss, Marshall Holman, but again, they're just that one step down from the players we have already discussed. So we've covered pretty much all of the candidates for the GOAT debate. Let's talk about my pick, because this is a tricky one. For me, it really comes down to just 2 players. Yes, Norm and Pete are up there. You can make cases, but ultimately it does always come down to Earl and Walter Ray. I will go out on a limb and I will say Walter Ray Williams Jr. is my pick for the greatest of all time. Yes, it's very close between him and Earl, but just the fact I think that Walter has more titles. He had a much longer career where he was just dominant for so long. I think Walter, for me, just gets the edge. But that being said, I do expect that argument to change, just because we've got 2 players in Belmonte and EJ who in the next 5 to 10 years could go on to do even more special things than what they've already done. I mean, EJ in particular has got so much time on his side, and if he carries on the way he is, for me, he has got such an opportunity here to go down as the greatest of all time, because he's got 27 titles, 7 of those majors. I really think his level of dominance and consistency over the last 2 or 3 years is starting to give him such an edge in the debate that, if he can add at least 10 more titles, we can revisit this in 5 to 10 years time. He's got 10 titles plus maybe a few more majors. Well, then he definitely is going to be challenging Earl and Walter Ray in that debate. But as I mentioned earlier, I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comment section below who you think the greatest bowler of all time is. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to the channel. That is going to do it from me for today, and as always, thank you bowling fans, and see you all next time.